I mean, I guess we're sort of preaching to the converted a little bit here because agriculture is arguably the most important industry in the world, and yet, without getting too political, it seems many of the wealthier governments around the world are deprioritizing the sector. And according to the UN, each day 25,000 people, including more than 10,000 children, die from hunger and related causes. I mean, that's truly shocking in my book. Some 854 million people worldwide are estimated to be undernourished, and high food prices may drive another 100 million people into poverty and hunger. Like I said, I don't get political, but farmers everywhere have such an important role to play, even if in the short term here in the UK they're being forced through financial pressures to accept non-food producing schemes. So it's clear we need to drive improvements and efficiencies in farming, and Agri-Tech has a massive part to play in this. I mean, it's unlikely Agri-Tech solutions is going to revolutionize food production. It's more likely it's going to be moving the needle one degree at a time. So I mean, it's evolution rather than revolution. And of course, the challenge here is farmers don't know what they don't know, if that makes sense. So how we firstly make, how do we make them aware of innovations and then help them to understand how they'll beneficially impact them? I mean, after all, if you'd have asked a cowboy in the 1870s what would help them to round up cattle better, they might have said a faster horse. But not knowing that actually 20 years later, the invention of barbed wire would mean that the cattle could be constrained to fixed areas and rounding up wasn't so necessary. So anyway, morning all, my name's Daniel Bennett. You probably know that. I help ambitious agri-tech businesses grow by finding and securing customers for them. I'm prone to some cliches, so sorry for any corniness. But they do seem to help people, remember things. Call them a Danism if you want. Anyway, so the concept behind the Agri-Tech Marketing Mastermind is to share. And let's get creative. Let's explore what's worked and not worked for ourselves. I mean, I'm hoping this is going to be an interactive session. Obviously, I appreciate people have got other things to do and multitasking, but if you've got your camera on, we can engage with each other. Going to keep it informal. This is not about me doing death by PowerPoint. In fact, I haven't even got a PowerPoint. Maybe in the future, at other meetings, the odd slide might be handy. But this is, like I say, I'm hoping we can get interactive. And in the group, there's going to be a range of marketing experience and knowledge. But I believe we're all students and we're all teachers. So you could argue the true test of learning something is being able to teach it to others. So I hope we can all help each other. It's possible you might perceive you have a competitor in the room. I believe that collaboration is far more powerful than competition. And so the concept here is to introduce an agri-tech marketing topic and have a little short talk about it. Then let's open the floor up to anyone who wants to share a challenge or a stretch that they might have. And we can help feedback to each other and share our knowledge and experience. And the reality is, you're as likely to learn as much from hearing other people's challenges as it is to actually share your own challenges and getting answers. And I'm really open to feedback. How can we improve this? How can we improve the Agri-Tech Mastermind, the Marketing Mastermind? And I mean, after all, cliche, feedback is the breakfast of champions. So today's topic is from field to follower, building a targeted audience for your Agri-Tech solution. Before we do that, can we just say some hellos? Would you like to just introduce yourselves? I mean, Tracy, who are you?
Hello, I'm Tracy. I used to work in the agri industry for a number of companies. Happy to say AB Agri Businesses and Produce Investments before that, so animal feed and produce. I'm no longer in the industry, but looking to maybe make a move back, so want to keep my finger on the pulse.
Great stuff. Thanks, Tracy. And Annie.
So I'm Annie Wynn. I've been in the ag industry for, nearly 10 years now. Just fell into the industry, not from a farming background or anything. First started off as a certification body for SAI Global, is how I got into ag, farm inspections, things like that. then fell into the agricultural charity sector as the marketing and events manager, which I absolutely loved. And I was there for nearly 5 years. We got to the point where I thought, you know what, it's kind of same old now, isn't it? So on to a new challenge. I then, for the last 6 months, was working for Agri-Web Media. So, Daniel, you know, obviously, Chris and Clive, don't you? So, obviously, for the Farming Forum, Directorilla magazine, etc. But I've now just gone essentially self-employed as of the last 3 weeks as a social media account manager, which I've been wanting to do for ages. I just never had the minerals to do it, basically. So I've now finally done it. But because I've been obviously working for Directorilla, coming from like the fluffy charity side, and then coming over to like machinery, Agri-Tech, the whole lot, I realised how much I don't know on that side of the sector. So hence why I'm here today, just same as everybody else, listening in, multitasking, seeing obviously what you've got to talk about, knowing the sector way better than I do. But I do obviously have an interest in it and want to learn as much as possible. So
Oh, Annie, it's fantastic, and congratulations on
thank you.
going alone. It's sorry, that's not the right phrase. Going alone. You're starting something and driving it yourself. That's absolutely amazing. Well done.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. 3 weeks in. I can't believe how busy I've been, actually, if I'm completely honest. I have to expand already if anybody wants to be a social media account manager.
Yeah, great stuff. Gemma, I know you're sort of doing two things. I'll ask Steph first, but if Gemma, if you've got a second, just say who you are, because I think you've got a fantastic role what you do. Steph, who are you? Where'd you come from?
Hello, so I'm Steph. I'm a sheep and beef farmer's daughter from Wales. I've been working in agri-marketing for the last probably 6 or 7 years now, actually. More recently in the genetics industry, and then a few months ago I joined Agri-Tech as a brand manager.
Great stuff. Yeah, I've bumped into Rob a few times.
Yes.
Doing a great job. Yeah. Hello, Gemma.
Hello, I've put my video on now. Yeah, so I'm Gemma, and I was my background really is sort of, I entered the agricultural industry from graduating at Harper Adams. That was how I kind of got into it, and then spent most of my career to date in genetics, so cattle genetics background, breeding, and then also selling genetics, and then sort of entered into advertising now, so selling advertising and sort of entering this world of marketing a little bit, and sort of more business to business sales, which is different for me. So yeah, any hints, tips, things I can pick up today would be useful, and yeah, just kind of trying to keep my finger on the pulse like many others have sort of said, really.
That's great. That's great. That's good to meet you. And
yes, and yeah,
great. And Andrew's just crept into the room. Morning, Andrew.
Morning.
How are you? We've literally, I've just done a brief introduction, and then I've just asked people to say who they are. Would you mind sharing who you are and where you're from?
Andrew, and I am from a business called Growing Fresh Solutions Limited. We are not in tech, but we are in consultancy and advice for farmers and growers.
That's great. And do you know, I use the term agri-tech because I suppose to me it implies innovation and progress rather than being the me too. So I mean, I use tech as the broadest possible sense. So I don't want it to be an exclusive thing. So anyone who's actually, you know, really pushing boundaries and trying to do different things in agriculture, then that's how I define it. Stephen, good grief, who are you?
Hi everyone. So my name is Stephen, as you can see on the screen, and I basically just help Dan to implement business growth strategies. Yeah, and I'm from Nigeria. I live in Lagos.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, good to have you here. Well, okay, so really thanks for that. So today's subject is about how to from field to follower, building a target audience for your agri-tech solutions. And I know in the room, you know, Annie, you've been doing, you know, building audiences for a long time and doing it very, very well. But I suppose, you know, first thing is, you know, how do we understand our audience? How important is actually, you know, the audience persona in agri-tech? Looking at our customer avatars. Again, a Danism, trying to speak to everyone, you'll end up speaking to no one. So let's actually work out who we want to speak to, and let's actually communicate with them, because otherwise we're just going to be like the shotgun approach and actually not be targeted. So key factors to consider when defining our target audiences. In farming, we've got the traditionalists, the old perception of baler twine to hold the old trousers up, and in reality, they still exist, and actually there's still quite a lot of them. And that's not being disrespectful. I mean, it's their lives. They choose how they live and work. But there's still, a significant chunk of them. And then, through to right to the other side, where we've got the real progressives. We've got those who are running serious businesses and always looking for efficiencies and improve, to drive productivity improvements. So who are we trying to speak to? And I guess, because we're talking agri-tech, it's really the progressive side that we're focusing on. But is it just farmers we should be targeting? Oh, just bear with me. We've got somebody else coming in. Is it just the farmers we should be targeting? Who else? What other avatars are there? For example, 95% of farm businesses still have a family orientation, and how much influence does the family have on farm decisions? And it could be the partner, it could be the kids of. Sorry, I was going to say come out of Harper, because that's where they come from. I went to a different place, but they come back to the farm and they want to make a big impact, and so they're looking for new ideas. They want to sort of beat their own path. So just because we've got the 59-year-old average age farmer, that's not the only person we should be engaging and communicating with. It's all the others, and it's down to the people working on farms as well. They might not make the ultimate decision, but they can be influential. And I've heard actually two big farmers, and a chap who runs 4,500 acres up near Aberdeen. One of his biggest issues is recruitment. He's now got to the point of asking what brand of tractors his drivers want to drive. So, just a very simple example of how we must not ignore all the other people within the audience. But of course, we've got to understand pain points. Pain is a far greater motivator than gain. I think they say something like, pain is 80% stronger as a motivator than pain. So actually understanding our audience's pain points, and maybe it's not a very nice thing to say, but maybe we have to put our fingers into the pain and just stir it about a bit, just to sort of make them actually realize it. Because if we can actually then solve people's pain, that through our solutions, then they're going to be engaged and they're going to be motivated. So sorry, hi, welcome, Simon. We're sort of got underway. We've done a little introduction, and hopefully shortly we can bring you in. This isn't me lecturing for half an hour. This is about hopefully a conversation. Anyway, so we need clarity on messages that your avatar understands, and perceptions are a reality. Think about how you want to be perceived. Think how you are perceived, and how you want to be perceived, how you think you are perceived, and how you are perceived are actually three different things if you think about it. There's only one way of finding out how you are actually perceived, and that's by asking, because how you think you're perceived could be very, very different. So we've got to think about how we get our messages over so that they're understood and received and interpreted in the way they're intended. And so, I mean, Annie, this is your field now, content creation. I've seen some wonderful stuff come from you over the last few years. I do stalk people. But, again, facts tell, stories sell. I don't know if anyone's ever heard that. Actually telling the actual facts. Now, farmers do like facts, but actually they're still going to buy into the story. It's the story that actually that they buy into. It's the emotional connections.
You just about to say that it's storytelling, isn't it? And when you tell a story, you're actually telling it essentially from your point of view, which makes you quite connectable, makes you quite relatable. And actually, really, if you tell that story which resonates with them, they connect to you, and then they connect to a product, because actually they're talking and listening to you. So it's really quite a personal job, really, isn't it? Considering you're lecturing to the many, if they can connect to you, I think that's when your story spreads a lot more, really, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing is farmers are nosy buggers, aren't they? They love to know what other farmers are up to. So actually, if we can almost use that third party story of what somebody's done, that's what resonates and connects with the person you're actually sharing the story with. So using that third person can be very powerful. And remember, farmers don't like to be sold to, but they do like to buy. They have to buy. They're actually very experienced at buying, and they make some significant investment decisions when you think about it. Compared to a lot of small, I mean, farmers are actually generally quite small businesses, comparatively. But as a proportion of revenue compared to what they invest, I mean, the percentages are huge. So they do make these big buying decisions. And so it's using case studies, and I say, telling these stories. And I mean, just for example, I do some work with a company called Dudley Peverill Associates, and they actually they're specialists in farm diversification consultancy, and we tell the story of Anthony, who's one of the partners. He farms 1,000 acres down near Aylesbury, and a few years ago he realised that farm revenues were under massive pressure, so he started going on a diversification journey. And this was compounded by HS2 splitting his farm into two as well. And it's telling these things about, his problem of HS2, of revenues. Actually, that's what other farmers actually resonate with and connect with. And actually, that highlights their pain points. So it's then about developing, compelling content for our agri-tech audiences. And on socials, we so often say, and sorry, my language does slip occasionally, so I do apologize in advance. We see social posts going, buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit. And that's not giving anybody any value at all, is it? Sure, every now and again you can put an offer in there, but I mean, we used to talk about content offer. I imagine these days it's content. 10 times more content than offers, because that's how Annie.
And also, as well, if it helps anybody in this webinar, what I've noticed again is, as we say, different audience types. So obviously, coming from the charity side of things, and this was the first marketing job I ever fell into, it very much was connecting people, telling people how them supporting the charity supports the industry, etc. It was that kind of messaging. Whereas I've noticed coming into like the direct driller side of things, and the completely different target audience in comparison to the charity supporters, is the audience now love facts. They love trials. They love information. So I kind of came into AgriWeb Media doing the fluffy charity because that's what I knew. And I wasn't getting any really reactions or kind of interactions. But I've put posts out, for example, in relation to like the drill exhibitors at Direct Driller at Cereals. And it's come from Claydon Say. And it's a really informative post. And I've put that the caption as a little bit of facts and figures of what they've sent me in their content. And my goodness, it's flown because the information is there, it's a product, but it's also telling the farmers how it helps them. So from that side of things, with like the ag tech that you say, and those people who are actually interested in the techie side, bringing their farming forward, it's the facts and figures that they're interested in and the information, rather than just being like, oh, we've got a product and it's 10% off. So it's really like that. It's quite a complicated kind of strategy, but actually once you understand what they're wanting and what makes them tick, essentially, that's obviously when you can cater to it. But that was my learning curve, coming from, as I say, the fluffy side to then machines and ag and tech and the completely different audiences.
Annie, thank you. That's such a valuable insight. And the bitter pill of experience. Yeah. So of course, and what we're trying to do is build our audience, aren't we? We want to engage them. It's about building relationships within the agri-tech community. And actually, as I said earlier, collaboration is far more powerful than competition. So I believe. So actually, how can we build our network? And Danism, your network is your net worth. How can we build our relationships, work with others? Doing this, participating together to share ideas. We're all in the same industry, and we're all doing the same thing, and that's trying to grow our businesses. Call it marketing, call it sales, call it business development. Actually, the outcome the goal is the same. It's just slightly different approaches to it. And it's about positioning yourself as the specialist. You expert content, podcasts, webinars, and let's be absolutely blunt and I'm transparent. The reason I've launched Agri-Tech Marketing Mastermind is to position me and what I do. But I'm hoping that we can all benefit from it. This is not just about Bennett. So also then we've got to sort of measure and optimize. And so we're going to use our data. We're going to, website traffic and visitor behavior online. How long are they staying on pages? Which pages are performing highest performing? Which ones are converting? And when we say converting, it can be small conversions, i.e. downloading something or dropping an email. It might not be a specific lead, but it's about that journey that we take people on. And then things like the social channels. And again, I'm sure Annie can teach far more about this than me. But obviously, we need to have an audience. We need a certain, a certain size of audience. But then actually, what's the engagement? Or what feedback are we getting? Or what's the involvement with our audiences? And then things like email open rates and click-throughs. All this stuff we can actually learn from and modify our behavior by analyzing the data. So, I mean, as I said, the whole idea about the mastermind is, that's a subject that I've sort of introduced there. Have people got any challenges around this that they'd like to bring to the table? Are people experiencing certain things when not working? And Annie, you just shared about your experience about, coming from the charity sector where, it's quite gentle. You said soft and fluffy, so I can say soft and fluffy. But, they do great work. But actually, going from that sector to the harsh reality of kit and big bucks. Anybody else got any challenges that they'd like to share with us, and let's see if we can actually find a solution for you. I mean, Andrew, what you talked about, a bit about what you do. You said, well, we're not quite ag tech, but just tell us a bit more about your consultancy.
Effectively, I'm from a background of management in horticulture and agriculture, so a very, very broad spectrum. But I've since then semi-retired and did an exercise to really, really focus in on what I love doing, and then to turn that into something I can do for the rest of my life. And the focus is very, very, very much on farm data. It's helping growers to collect, and use farm data successfully using very simple Excel spreadsheets, etc. Nothing complicated. And the whole idea is to be extremely user-friendly. The difficulty I have more than anything else is how much to let on about what you do without giving away everything to everyone else out there. And there's a part of me that says, well, why do you care if you really are retired? But the competitive part of me says, well, why should I give it all away? And I find that challenging. The other bit I find challenging is the balance between information sharing and what is not necessarily always proprietary information, but information that essentially belongs to people that I was employed by along the way. So it's trying to convert it into a format that can't be identified against any historic organizations. So it's a bit of a balancing act. Give away what to give away, what to keep, particularly in trying to get the attention of other people in terms of what you do. And if you went to my website, you'd find, oh, geez, that's really wishy-washy. What's he selling? But when people say it doesn't say what you're selling, I said, but if I told everyone what I'm selling, they would all know, and they would all be doing it themselves. I said the idea is to try and hook them in to ask the question. And once you're in a one-to-one with someone, you can then tell them or show them what it's all about. But it's I find the whole thing a little disconcerting. This balancing act between what to give away, what to keep, what you can say, what you can't say. It's interesting. I'll put it this way: I'm very pleased that I'm not reliant on my income for a living.
Well, thanks for that share. Before I ask anybody for their input, I'm very conscious that on our promotion we said 10 till 10:30. On reflection, half an hour is not quite long enough. Now, don't feel obliged to stay, but maybe we keep it going till about 11:15 if that works for people. But if you have to go, I'm not going to be insulted, not much anyway. But we'll sort of keep going till 1:45 and see how we get on. So, and has anybody got a response for Andrew? I mean, I've got some thoughts, but I would love to hear. I mean, Steph, you're involved in the industry. Have you got any thoughts about how Andrew could work around his little challenge?
It is a tricky one. I mean, you have to give a certain amount of way to pull people in, don't you? So I think a little bit of a strategy I quite like is sign up for sort of emails and sort of exclusive content, and that way you're gathering data, you're getting emails that you can then use to market to further, but they feel like they're getting something from you, and it's a bit of give and take.
Yeah. Sorry, was that you waving, Annie, or saying bye to someone?
Me giving a thumbs up saying that's really good advice.
Thank you.
It's like farming OnlyFans.
Yeah.
A little bit more PG though.
I just went.
I'll mute myself again now.
And I just went, Tracy, and she disappeared. Anyway, okay, and I mean, just from sort of a little bit of experience, I suppose that there's a school that says it doesn't matter how much you tell people, they won't actually action it. But that has to sit with you. But I suppose the other thing, a tool that I've used in the past is a product staircase. So what we do is identify different steps that we're going to take our prospective clients on. And so what we do is we get them on the first step by giving them something. We have to give something. And that could be something technical, but it's actually getting them engaged in that. And from there, there could be a bit of a trust purchase. It could be like, there's always got an exchange of some sort. So in exchange for that information, you get their contact details, or for the exchange of that information, they agree to a Zoom meeting for half an hour. And then, what your next step is, you can reveal a little bit more because you start to qualify who they are and what they need from you. And I mean, you can have as many steps as you want, but 3, 4, or 5 steps probably would actually take you to ultimately where you can best serve clients at the highest value. And actually, I mentioned Dudley Peveril earlier. That's a technique we use. Their consultancy projects can be tens of thousands of pounds, but actually, we start with a smaller project around a strategy piece, which people buy into, and we always tell them that this is a piece of work in its own right. And if at the end of it you want to go away and implement it yourself, we have absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. It's your information. But actually, if you want our help, then we're really pleased to carry on. Strangely enough, vast majority say, thanks for that piece of work. Let's carry on the journey. But you've not lost anything because you've actually been paid for that. But it's just working out those value steps, I think. Does that help?
Yeah, good. Yeah, it does. The other aspect I was thinking about is the clients that I work with are ecstatic about what they're getting, is how to lever them to get further down the road. But it's kind of that's a bit of a long journey. But yeah, it's all useful. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for your input. Steph, have you got anything?
I suppose with something maybe Annie could help with is our social strategy at the moment. I'm struggling with a little bit. So things just aren't performing that well, other than Reels. That seems to be doing really well. But now whenever I post,
much to say on this topic. Just for everybody on this conversation, like Steph, you're not alone. I have also been finding it quite difficult what people are reacting to, what they're finding interesting, etc. But purely because at the moment, as far as I'm aware and from what I know, there's a lot of changes in these whole algorithms, Instagram in particular. One minute they're concentrating on reels and keeping people watching videos, but what I think they've realized is actually people are now going scrolling blind, is what they're saying. So you see a reel, you go, oh, it's cool. If it doesn't get your attention, you're off it in 3 seconds, essentially, is the average. So now what they're actually doing is either reels, I suppose, that are super capturing, which means you then have to bump up your quality of content that you're creating, which takes way more time, way more efforts, way more edits. Or they're now actually allowing you to post up to 15 pictures carousels, because what they're realizing is that actually people are staying on the pictures longer because they're scrolling for longer. So it's not actually anything you're doing or strategy or anything. There's just massive changes at the moment with the entirety of social media. So I mean, personally speaking, what's always worked for, I suppose, myself and my strategy is, again, coming back to what I said before and making it super relatable. Even if, for example, you want to obviously push your product and you're making a picture, a reel or pictures of your product, actually, why not get yourself or a human in there talking about the product and making it exciting, or saying, behind the scenes, we're doing this today for our campaign. I think it's transparency at the moment is actually what's becoming more relatable, rather than, as I said, this super fancy reel that people have seen thousands of and they're bored and then they swipe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's as far as I know anyway. I hope it works. That's kind of the strategy that I think is working at the moment. And don't feel like it's you or you're doing rubbish content, because it's not. There's just loads of changes at the moment.
Okay,
Loads.
thank you. Yeah, that is sort of the route we're going down. It's very much, I've always said it's people focused. That if there's a person in a picture or a video, it's always done 10 times better than without.
Certainly, Annie, thank you for that, and I hope Steph, you've got something from that. I mean, from sort of my experience, the biggest challenge is the content. I mean, Annie, you create content. A lot of these businesses, they're sort of thinking, expected to create content, but it's not in their flow. And
No.
so actually, if you're in a position where you can actually do content for them, the right content. I don't know if you've seen the Serials events, some of their new clips with Sandy Fitzpatrick. Worth just checking him out on LinkedIn. You can find LinkedIn and Twitter. He's probably on the other channels as well.
Yeah, he's massive on TikTok. He's a great guy.
He's very funny.
So funny.
It'll be interesting to see the actual commercial results of it. But I mean, I've sort of had some involvement with Serials over the years, and it was just staged, it's stale, the social content. But Sandy's brought his sense of humour to it. And
I think it's definitely worked in a sense of people talking about it, and him like bringing a really light-hearted side, a different side, as you say, that a lot of the ag industry hasn't seen before. So, and also as well, because I've worked with Sandy quite a few times now, and what I've noticed the difference, for example, even with me going self-employed, that social media account management and content creation are 2 completely different things, and people get them severely mixed up. So you can go on a day out and somebody goes, oh, can you just do our socials for us for a day out? But actually, we're content creating, which is a creative mind, creative strategy, creative editing, which takes up a lot of time and energy, in comparison to if, for example, somebody sends you their content and you just schedule it out. So that also as well is what you've really got to take into consideration when it comes to marketing and socials, is the effort you're putting into it, what you're creating, how you're creating, and actually, are you just doing your socials, keeping people aware of what you're doing, or are you content creating, which takes a lot more time, and then obviously you realize you're behind because you've actually been editing a video for 4 hours. So it's a real balance that you've got to bear in mind. Yeah, it's really tough doing stuff like that. People don't realize the time and energy that goes into it.
No.
Yeah, absolutely, and it takes investment, and a lot of agri businesses sort of like don't quite get that, but obviously, ultimately we are businesses. We want to look at the commercial aspect of it. I suppose the one thing we've got to remember, it's called social media for a reason, because it's social. It's not business media, is it? And so it's that blend of education and entertainment, and moving it through into a business context. But
if you get it wrong, you get it wrong.
Yeah. So, Annie, is there anything that you can share that you've got a little challenge with?
Yes, my challenge was, as I said from the start, coming from the charity side of things and then coming over to a completely different sector of the industry. I mean, honestly, working for Agri Media has been incredible because I've learned so much within the last 6 months. I'm still working for them, luckily, as well. They've taken me on 2 days a week, which is great. But I was absolute rabbit in the headlights coming from what I completely knew and my comfort zone over to something I thought, oh, I can apply that to tech and crops and things. And I couldn't. So it's been a massive learning curve. But what I also think as well is that we all just need to be, well, I think the industry is pretty good at this anyway, but pretty accepting if somebody's to turn around and say, I don't know anything about this. And actually, the majority of people step in and go, well, what do you need to know? How can I help you? So I haven't had really any issues learning and kind of coming into the industry, but my personal challenge was I didn't know anything. But now I do, like I know quite a lot about directional no tills, this, that, the other, soil health, quality, the whole lot. It's been fascinating. So, but yeah, that was my challenge is actually the different sectors and how do you talk to each people in each sector.
Yeah, and actually, just talking about no-till. Try doing that here in the northwest at the moment with the weather. It's been plows are king this year. It's
I bet. Yeah, I bet. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's so diverse. It changes all the time. How do you keep up with that? That's also a challenge. How are you keeping up with actually what's going on? One week you've got something planned, but actually there's either floods or droughts or anything else where you think, I've got to change that because it's not relevant for this week. So
So actually, I've got a confession about how I keep up with things. I mean, I'm not involved practically in farming these days. I do miss it tremendously. And given if I got a phone call to say come do a weekend's ploughing, I would jump straight at it. But Ollie Harrison is a pretty good barometer. I mean, actually, he did sign up for this, but he couldn't make it. And he's showing what's going on a farm. So actually, I count it as part of my business is to actually watch what he's doing, because and Tom Pemberton as well. I know there are others. Harry Metcalf. I don't know if you've come across Harry Metcalf, Harry's farm. He's more technical. He does it more infrequently, but actually he explains technical stuff in a very understandable way. Very switched on guy. So yeah, that's how I keep up to date and keep on learning. And I go to events and shows and meet people. And doing this as well, this forum is about sharing. So look, I hope you've enjoyed it. This is like the first one. I'll tell you what I'd really appreciate is any feedback. What went well, what didn't go very well, and what we could do better. Obviously, if you've got colleagues that you think would benefit from sharing, a little bit of an educational thing, and that doesn't always have to be me, anybody else, if they've got a subject they think they could share, that would be fantastic. And then sort of open up into like I say, a mastermind of sharing your sort of a current problem or a stretch that you've got. And we work together to see if we can find a solution. So I hope you've got some value from this. Thank you, Andrew. That's a big thumbs up. You did that without moving your hands. It was quite impressive. So, in terms of hopefully you can have a little think about your key takeaways. I mean, Steph, we've all got the same struggle with content and getting social media working. And do you know what? Maybe we're trying too hard. I don't know. We're just trying to be the next thing. But actually, if we just chilled a bit and actually used it, social media, maybe that would help. But the paymasters are sort of saying, no, we want this, and maybe we've got to stand our ground a bit. Andrew, thank you for your contribution. If you ever want a discussion about how you create a product staircase or a value ladder, very happy to do that. Annie, we're going to have a chat anyway because I've got. I told you somebody else who couldn't make the call. He had already said he's looking for some support. So actually, the maybe 45 minutes, I certainly felt better to me. 30 minutes would probably have been just a bit too. But I like to keep things tight, and start on time. So the next session I've got is the 25th of April at 10 a.m. And there I've got a subject of from promise to profit. So this is about aligning your brand values with farmer needs in agri-tech. I spent one day I'll tell my story, but I spent quite a lot of my life building brands for various businesses, and my business was called Brand Promise. So actually, you know, your brand is your promise, but then also how do you take your brand promise into brand profit? So we'll have a little explore around that. And please connect with yourselves. I mean, Steph, if you want some help from Annie, please reach out to Annie. You know, I'm not precious about how this develops into helping each other. Obviously, we've all got to find business. That's the reality. You know, but if we can help each other in any way, then please connect yourselves. And if anybody needs any help from me, looking how to you know, build your business through growing your business through finding and securing more customers. I reach out to other experts. I can talk about it, but I can't put a website together, but I know what a website does. I know how social media works, but I need somebody to really support me with the content and the management of it. You know, you know, we're all together. Gemma, thank you for joining in. I know you were multitasking. I can't do that.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't normally, but our magazine deadline is looming for May, so I'm just trying to go through all my adverts and seeing which ones are repeats and which ones aren't and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope you don't mind. I was a bit yeah, juggling things a bit there, but I have listened in and found it insightful. So thank you, everyone.
Well, if any, Gemma, that's really appreciated. If anybody could drop me a line, say, "Oh, you just said I found it insightful," so I can use that to try and build our audience, because I think, yeah, we don't want to be a huge group, but I would have thought that, you know, that there's a critical mass there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna mention it to my colleague who's in the office, because she does do more of the social media side of things. She's got more of a background in social media than I have. But obviously the more we can all learn along the way, the better, really. So yeah, I'll mention it and see if she can join as well.
Yeah, that's what I like about the ag industry as well, is that, you know, we're all sitting here saying the same thing. We get together and actually go, you're not alone, actually, we're all right. We're pretty good. We're working together, aren't we, in the industry, which I actually encourage much more than going off and butting heads in competition. I just naturally not like that. And I like that we've come together and we're all sitting there saying the same thing. How can we improve? What can we do? I feel like I'm not getting any interest or whatever. You know, it does make you feel better, doesn't it? Knowing that actually there's people who are feeling the same, or you can help, etc. So
yeah,
I think that's been quite good from the group.
Great. Well, look, we'll leave it there. I thank you so much for your enthusiastic participation. Obviously, I really hope to see you in a fortnight. If there's anything in between, you know, you need to reach out, whether it's to somebody else or to me. Be always happy to have a chat. Annie will speak to you when I've sort the date out. So thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank
you very much.
Bye.
Bye. There we go.
Yeah. I think you can stop recording now.
What, you're going to be rude?